You stupid bitch. Yeah, you're a stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. Welcome to a new episode of Stupid Bitches Say What, the Aussie podcast about everything and nothing. Always, mostly always, with wine. With your hosts, Sean Hipkins and Skye Hullett. This week's theme is true crime, Australia, New Zealand.
This episode, Sean discusses the disappearance of 20-year-old Brisbane girl Sharron Phillips, who went missing in 1986, and I talk through the disappearance of schoolteacher Stephanie Scott and the murder that shocked Australia and the small town of Leeton. What are you drinking, Sean?
Well, I am drinking a rosé this week. It's a summer's day.
I noticed the pretty pink colour.
I know, and and that's not my eyes. It's
Ew, if it was, gross, actually.
It's a summer's day, and a summer's day goes nice with a chilled rosé, I think. It's called Breaking Grounds, and it's a 2021, so it's a wine womb vintage, from Langthorne Park, I think it is. And the guy, it's a Naked Wines, and it's Josh Pfeiffer. You may have seen Jen Pfeiffer's stuff that's all throughout it.
Yeah, I think I have. Is that with the rooster?
No.
Pfeiffer has a rooster on, I think. No? Okay, but I've seen Pfeiffer.
Not this one. But yeah, Jen does a lot of bubbles and reds and stuff like that. She's got like the red wavy hair, I think, on the thingy. But yeah, but it's nice. I'm pleasantly surprised.
I know the weather is quite warm. We're in different states, but I'm sure it's always warm in Queensland. But I'm actually sat here in my bikini top and my singlet, and nice. It's definitely warm.
And what are you drinking, Skye?
Well, look, I'm drinking a mocktail because I'm off the booze just temporarily, due to my recent surgery. But I am drinking it in a friend's glass that says "You are my lobster," with a pink bendy straw.
Oh. So, and it's not a plastic straw, is it?
Yes, it is. It's only because I got them in a pack. I got them in a pack from at Christmas, a gift pack that someone gave them to me.
So use it twice at least.
Yes, that's right. Otherwise, they just would have went straight in the bin, and then that's not good either.
No.
I should use it a couple of times, exactly. But it's delicious. It's got acai berries in it.
Oh, crochet.
Yes, a little bit of peanut butter.
Wow.
No, it's okay. I love it.
Is this your own creation, or is this an actual recipe?
This is my own. This is actually a recipe. I copied something that I used to get years ago from this smoothie bar, and I've never been able to recreate it quite as well. But yes, it's got peanut butter, acai berries, banana, strawberry, blueberries, a little bit of ice.
So it's a smoothie type. It's not like a fruity drink with peanut butter swirls through it, right?
It's a healthy smoothie.
Nice, good for you. And I have to say, I never thought I'd ever hear those words come out of your mouth. I'm off the booze.
I know. Look, I'm disappointed to say them. I must say it's hard for me not to have a drink. I'd love to have a wine right now, especially with this weather.
Yes, but it's necessary.
Rosé sounds delightful.
Rosé on a summer's day.
And especially with Melbourne Cup on Tuesday, and I can't drink.
Well, I don't do Melbourne Cup anyway.
Yeah, well, I love the races, so.
So, how has your week been? How's the recovery going?
Look, it's been a shit show, absolutely, but I'm getting there. So that's the main thing. It's nice to be home. It's nice to be back with my family. Yeah. How about you? How's your week been? You've been busy with work, haven't you?
I have been, but that's a standard. I'm glad to see that we are able to podcast. Because we missed last week because obviously you were.
I was sick. But I was so excited about today. I've been hanging for it ever since I've been well enough to actually care about life again.
Get back into the.
I've been like,
saddle.
I can't wait for Friday. I can't wait to, even though I'm doing it sober, which is like, how's this gonna go?
I know. Is the personality really in the bottle? Yes. We'll see.
But this is also a subject that we both agreed after our last one. Maybe we need to be a little bit more sober for, because it's a bit more serious. The old the true crime. So I'm happy to give this one a burl, just on the old smoothie / mocktail.
Very good.
But yeah, what else has happened in your week?
So it's been, I guess, what's happened in the 2 weeks since we've had
You've had a
a
haircut.
recording? I
Am
have had a haircut.
Haircut.
Thank you
look,
very
smile.
much. I had to cancel the last one because I had the COVID test just the day before. We may remember our story from the last step. And it was out of control. But yes, no, it is nice and Sean now. Sean. Yeah, what did we do last weekend? I can't even remember. I told you I'm shit with this type of stuff. But it's been a fun week. It's been a moist week. It's summer has come through fast. But yeah, no, it's been good. I'm looking forward to this episode. True crime, as you mentioned, is one of our faves topics. So
yes.
I am looking forward to hearing about your case. When you started talking about Stephanie Scott in the intro, I thought, oh, actually, this does sound familiar. When you mentioned she was a school teacher, because I don't know too much about it, but I think I know.
It was fairly recent, so I think once I start talking about it, you will remember a lot of the key things. It's quite a big one.
Yeah. And have you heard of the Sharron Phillips?
Look, I've heard the name, and when you said that she's from Brisbane, that jigged a bit of a memory. And look, it's 1986. I feel like this is one Mum's talked about before.
Yes.
But my mum's a bit of a true crime person.
She?
Oh yeah, she loves all that sort of stuff.
My mum does too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was going to say throughout my talk about it that if you don't know it, if you ask your parents, I bet they will know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was recommended as a potential topic to me from a colleague at work, Andrina.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes. And she said, because it's a Brisbane case, obviously I live in Brisbane. Yeah. And then one of our other colleagues walked past at the time she was saying it, and she turned around and she goes, "Oh, Karen, if I said the name Sharron Phillips, would you know what I'm talking about?" And Karen just went, "Oh, yes." So I thought, okay.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah. And it is somewhat familiar too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's get to it because I'm really excited now. I want to hear about Sharron Phillips. Let's start.
All right. So let's go. So just move that over there, and then this over here. All right. So I'm going to talk about Sharron Phillips, who is a Brisbane woman that went missing on the night of 8 May 1986. Her body hasn't been found, though it's widely believed that she is dead.
So sad when their bodies aren't found. It's just brutal.
Especially for the families
and
the loved ones that are left behind. There is a lot of speculation around who could have been involved in her disappearance, but it's one of those cases that's so old now, you don't know if you'll ever find out the truth. They don't have DNA to go off, so they can't use our advanced technologies to figure shit out. Stories, you're asking people to recount events that happened, 25 years ago? 25 or 35? 25. 35, fuck me. Mama's getting old.
Only because I'm 41 and I was born in 1980, then I just said, it can't be 25.
Damn it. So you're asking people to count on shit that happened that 35 years ago. Memories are a bit flawed. And people are older. So we don't know if we'll ever find out the truth, even though there were multiple reports of people seeing someone matching her description throughout the events of the night. She has not been heard or seen since. Her disappearance is one of the country's highest profile police cases. And as I was saying before, if you ask your parents if they know the name Sharron Phillips, they'll more than likely know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah. So we'll get into the events of the night of 20-year-old Sharron was driving home late at night on the night of the 8th of May 1986 in her yellow Datsun Bluebird when the Datto runs out of fuel near the entrance to the Wakehole Migrant Centre.
This is coming back to me. I remember the Wakehole and the yellow Datsun. Yeah, okay, keep going. Yeah.
She leaves the car on the side of the road and she walks along Ipswich Road heading towards the nearby Wakehole
Road.
Yep. She meets with some soldiers at the barracks who tell her there aren't any phones she could use, so she heads on. And at around 11 p.m, she finally gets to a phone box near Wakehole train station, just west of Brisbane, and it's the last time she's seen alive. Sharron makes a reverse charge phone call to her friend/boyfriend, Martin Ballas, at 11:18 p.m, asking if he can come pick her up. He heads off. There's some slight confusion on where she actually is on the road. So he's driving around and he ends up getting a flat tire. He fixes the tire and drives on some more, and then he just finds Sharron's car abandoned on the side of the road. There's no sign of Sharron anywhere, so he heads back home.
Ipswich Road would have been a shit fight though in the 80s. Can you imagine?
80s, yeah.
It would have been just fucking ugh, you know.
Not lit, all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And he heads back home. He gets home and his roommate tells him that Sharron had called again at around 12:03 a.m. So there was nearly an hour in between the two calls. At approximately 3 a.m. on the morning of 9 May, a group of truck drivers were driving down a coal mine dirt track when they noticed a car without headlights go speeding past them. The truck drivers mentioned it seemed like a carload of hoons, and it caught them off guard, as not only is it strange to see a car on the little-known track, but the time and the speed the car was travelling at on such a tricky part of the road was also an alarm bell moment. They're like, what the fuck's going on here? What are they doing here? In saying that, I do also remember going down dirt tracks when we were younger in a carload of friends doing stupid shit like that, but it was still just one of those. And especially when that evening someone had gone missing.
So how long did it say how long the friend waited or looked for her before he just went home?
So he left at 11:18, so he's probably gotten his shit together, left at 11:30 maybe to go pick her up. His car's gone flat. He gets home, and by the time he's gotten home, he's told that there was another call at 12:03. So I don't know exactly the time he gets home, but I'm guessing he's probably gotten home maybe an hour after he's left. Well, he's had to fix the car tire in the meantime, so maybe an hour and a half. Don't know exactly, sorry. The truckies report the carload of hoons to the police and also note that they noticed tracks leading to the edge of a dump site. And in their words, they said, we could see where something had been backed up through the long grass. You could see where they'd hit a big rock. It just didn't look right. When we heard the girl had gone missing and we added everything up, we thought it might be worth reporting. So a few days later, one of the truckies flags down a police car and told the officer what they'd seen. Despite offering to show the police the location, he was told they would check it out later. And unfortunately, though, anything was dumped off at the spot, it would have been covered up by tons of fill within days, dropped from 20 meters above by dump trucks. So she could be if she did get under there, she'd be under landfill, that's been dumped 20 meters above. No one hears or sees from Sharron again. No one hears from or sees Sharron again. And a week later, Sharron's shoes and bag were found near the spot where her car was abandoned. The case goes cold. That's all we know. So the whodunit. So they've looked into whether the boyfriend or the friend, Martin, had done it. He was interviewed by the authorities and eliminated as a suspect. They don't really go into too much there. I would have thought they would have investigated him a lot more, considering he was the one who was called. He ends up with a flat tire, which, sort of puts you out of action for a while. Conveniently, maybe, who knows, but he's eliminated as a suspect.
Yeah.
The soldiers were also put under question. So 20 years after her disappearance, a newspaper received an anonymous letter that Sharron had witnessed strange sex acts at the barracks and was killed to keep her silence. Strange sex acts, I would imagine, is probably boys fucking boys, who knows?
Yeah.
And in 2013, police investigated claims that a soldier from the former Wacol Army barracks had bragged about both kidnapping and killing Sharron. It seems the police not only questioned him several times, but also tested his clothing for the presence of blood. They never found any proof of his involvement. Newspapers also reported that year that the soldiers had always denied that Sharron had even been to the barracks, and an anonymous woman reported that a soldier had told her that they had all been told to lie about Sharron's presence at the barracks.
Shit.
And I don't know, like, you look into this what you will, this is all pure speculation, but you wonder if they've sort of told not to say anything because they don't want the army being tied up in this whole investigation or, of this missing person, or them being put in the spotlight over it, whether they had any involvement or not. It's just something that they just don't want to be involved in, I guess.
Yeah.
The father is also considered as a suspect. So his question about his daughter's disappearance, which he says he had nothing to do with
I think this is the bit that I remember, him being questioned again a few years back, maybe 5 or 10 years back. I think he was re-questioned, and they were looking at, that's the bit that I remember.
Yeah, you're right on the money. It wasn't him who was questioned, but it was something came out about it. which I'll get to as well. But you're right on the money there with the timing as well. So he said he had nothing to do with it, and he provides an alibi that he was actually collecting one of their trucks on the night in question. He claimed he took his wife Dawn to pick up the truck, but his wife can't drive, so then that throws into dispute how did Bob get his car home if he was picking up the truck. He was never formally interviewed by the police. In 1991, 5 years after the disappearance of Sharron, the parents are attending their son's wedding. The mother is heavily medicated on lithium for depression, which would have come about as Sharron's disappearance. And of course, she's very upset. It's her son's wedding. It's 5 years after the daughter's gone missing. She's probably having thoughts about the daughter should be there. Daughter should be having her own wedding, that type of shit.
Yeah.
Anyways, the wedding's about to start, and one of the investigators' wives, Skye, says to Bob, who's the father, to go and support their son at the wedding, and she'd sit down and look after Dawn, who was very upset and medicated. During that time, Kay reports, the investigator's wife reports that Dawn said to her, Kay, Bobby killed Sharron and put her in a box, and I want him to kill me and put me in a box too. These comments were hard to investigate. Yeah. So these comments were hard to investigate, though, due to how heavily medicated Dawn was at the time, and that the father, Bob, dismissed her comments as confusion from the medication. It's also reported that she used to spout a lot of rubbish, is the word they said, due to the medication and years of being on lithium. So she used to just say random shit all the time. So they couldn't really use it as a solid fucking lead.
They could still investigate that train of thought, even if it wasn't like they could still look at it and see what else they could find.
Yeah, and I think the hard thing too with that stuff is, like, if you investigate every single little statement,
the manpower,
the money, all that stuff, and then there's other shit going on as well at the time, and you know, other cases. So the mother, Dawn, dies in 2010 after years of being prescribed or taking lithium for the depression, and then 5 years later in August the father dies. It's at the father's funeral, or after the father's funeral, that some of the siblings start to talk amongst themselves for the first time in 27 years about their sister's disappearance. They'd all been agonizing over the fact that they had all secretly been thinking that their father may have done it, but they've never spoken about it to each other. You know, it's how do you bring that up?
What would the motive have been, though?
That's what confused me as well, because it's like, and it's all seemed, if the father had done it, it's all a thing out of perfect opportunity, or like, you know, like it just didn't make sense to me why the father would have done it.
And he was the biological father?
He's the biological father. But what they and it's like just the situation, it just seemed like a perfect situation if he was to do it, like, oh, she's broken down, oh, this is the night I'm going to get her, when there wasn't any threats.
But also, I guess that's a pretty bold statement to say that your father's capable of murdering your sister, though. There must have been underlying things there for them to believe that he was capable of that kind of rage or
do it. And if that all had thought, yeah, you're right.
Because maybe he was an incredibly violent man known to snapping, and, you know, maybe.
And there is reports, now I may repeat this because I have it in there, but there is reports that he had the shits with Sharron and one of their brothers, because I think there's 9 siblings, 9 kids in total. The two of them moved out of home, and the father wasn't sure how he was going to afford the house because they would have been contributing to the bills, whatever, and shit like that. So he had the shits with them, and that seemed to be the only motive, but still killing her. Yeah. Anyway, so they start talking about it. One of the siblings mentioned that the father had the shits with them and Sharron for moving out, as he didn't know if he could afford the house with them gone.
Right.
So as I mentioned earlier, the father's alibi stated that he went to pick up a truck that night that Sharron went missing. The siblings, despite not being questioned by the police for 30 years, claimed that their father was not working and didn't own any trucks.
Oh my God. They've just fucked it up, haven't they? Like, so many things that needed to be looked at.
It's always the way, isn't it? Like these cases where they just fuck up from the beginning, JonBenet Ramsey, where the police just make a schmozzle out of it, and then you never know what the fuck's actually happened. So they didn't investigate them or question them. And they claim their father hadn't been working, didn't own any trucks at the time, and throws doubt into his alibi. They believe the police don't want to talk to them, stating, this is what the kids say, it's because these basic things were not done and they don't really want to solve the case. So,
I feel like that's relevant. That's a relevant statement considering what you've just gone through.
Yeah. Something else I was going to say. The other thing I was thinking too is like maybe the father, if he's been shifty with his alibi and all that stuff, I always wonder if he was doing something he shouldn't have that night, and that's why they sort of all shifty. Maybe he was having an affair with somebody, or or whatever, and he can't come out with it because it'll ruin his reputation.
Yeah.
That type of shit. You never know.
Yeah.
They asked the police to do a check of a block of bushland next to the family home, and the police state that the family has given us some information, but it's not detailed enough to go into a search there, and we have spoken to the family in detail about that. So again, they can't invest all this manpower into searching through this bushland, digging shit up. It's 30 years ago, so it wouldn't just be freshly on the top of the ground, you know what I mean? It'd take a lot of work.
Yeah.
There just isn't any real motive, and the situation around it to me just doesn't add up why he would do it. Unless she may have also called him that night after old mate wasn't come to pick her up, called him. Who knows?
Yeah.
So that's all sort of all speculation. We don't know what the fuck's going on with either of those. But then we have another suspect who appears in the case in 2017. He appeared in the case a few years before that, but in 2017, there's a detective's name, a Red Bank Plains taxi driver named Raymond Peter Mulvihill, as a suspect who would have been charged, who they would have charged with the murder of Sharron if he hadn't died in 2002 of cancer. So they have a lot of shit on this guy, but they can't charge him with it because he's dead.
He's dead.
So Mulvihill was a taxi driver who was based at a home near the phone box Sharron was last seen at on Ipswich Road. Do you know how taxi drivers, they lease cars, kind of like a bus depot, and you go to a taxi depot where you drop your taxi off and all that shit. So he was also placed at the scene by his son, Ian, who said that Ian had said that his conscience had forced him to contact the police after reading a story in the papers in 2016 about Sharron's disappearance, and that his father had made a deathbed confession to him in 2002. However, there are so many inconsistencies in the story, but he basically says that his father had killed Sharron and coaxed him, Ian, the son, to unwittingly help him dispose of the body. This information prompts the Attorney General to reopen an inquest into her death, which was held in March this year. So during the inquest, it is reported that shortly after Sharron goes missing, 2 people claim to have seen a taxi parked on the side of the road in Wacol, where a man emerged from a bush carrying a shovel. They've mentioned to the police about, are they going to do a search in this bushland as well? But again, they can't, because they're saying that, I hope I get this the right way around, that the people who saw the taxi said it was a yellow taxi that they saw parked on the side of the road, but this guy, Mulvihill, drove a taxi that was green and white. Right. So they're not going to invest all the manpower in searching into something when blah, blah, blah.
It's a big area though too, but surely...
A huge area, but if you want to fucking solve a case, yeah. But they also said when they saw the guy coming out of the bushland with the shovel, they heard some noise and saw a shadow emerging. They said, "Are you right, mate?" And he just turned around, looked to him, and they said he looked like a Danny DeVito looking motherfucker, who this guy does look like. And he said, just came out and said, "Can't a guy take shit in peace?" And then just walked into his car and drove off. We also hear from another witness, Alison Clancy, who is Mulvihill's sister-in-law, who painfully recounts her own brutal rape and death threats at the hands of Mulvihill in the 70s.
Ew.
Alison was living with her sister and Mulvihill, and one morning, Mulvihill, who was a known womanizer at the time, emerges behind Alison, throws her on the bed, and rapes and abuses her. He then gets up, zips up, and threatens her with death if she ever says anything, and tells her he knows a place where he can dump her body. Then he walks out the room, and she keeps the rape from her family and doesn't say a word to anyone. In 92, Alison says she was at a family gathering, so it was a christening, and Mulvihill confides in Alison at the gathering that his son Ian killed Sharron, which conflicts with the later report that Ian provides of his father's deathbed confession. So the story that Alison recounts is that Mulvihill told her that he said he saw Sharron from his taxi where he was dropping off the taxi as she stepped out of a phone box and thought she was attractive. Sharron tells him that she's run out of petrol, but a friend was coming for her. He had just knocked off his shift and was waiting for his son Ian to collect him. So he then lured her back to the taxi, saying that he could get someone to bring petrol to the car. Next minute, he's on top of her in the back seat and starts raping her. Sharron doesn't go down easily, though, and she gets into a fist fight with him. So she fights, and he ends up knocking her out to stop her from screaming and finishes the job. As in the rape job, not the killing. The son arrives and they move the unconscious but still alive Sharron from the taxi into the boot of Ian's car and they drive home. This is all Mulvihill's statement to Alison.
The dad Mulvihill's statement to the raped sister-in-law at the christening. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So Ian drops off his father. The father orders him to dispose of Sharron and he drives off. As he's driving, he hears Sharron banging from the boot, which puts him into a panic. And it's then claimed that Ian drives to the ledge of a mine site and throws her over the edge while she's still alive. Alison says she wasn't aware of the missing persons case on Sharron and states that she wasn't sure who he was talking about. And at first she thought he was referring to Ian breaking up with a girlfriend, which just seems whack. I don't get that. When you've heard all that shit and they're banging in a boot and then they throw him over a mine site, that's not a breakup, that's murder. She also then moves to Adelaide and she's never said a word about the information that she was told until now at the inquest. So the inquest is finalised. It was held in March this year. They've gone through all these accounts. It seems like Ian, and whatever happened, if Ian was the one that was responsible for killing her, even though the father raped her, it's like he's trying to put it onto his dead father now, so he doesn't have any involvement. But the story that the father tells his sister-in-law includes both of them. And we don't know what the coroner's report is yet, so we can't.
Yeah, it's all kind of meaningless if they don't have a body. So are they going to go and search both locations, like try to find out where the mine shaft is?
Yeah, so is it a mine site? So it's kind of, so I think it's so hard when and it's like dumping grounds as well.
Yeah.
You've got 30 years of and tons of rubbish.
To
go sighting through. So no, there's no words of them going investigating into this at the moment. They've got to wait on the coroner's report. And I guess if the coroner's report comes out that, yes, she's murdered and these guys are the main suspects or Ian's suspect, that's when I guess they can start doing more of the heavy investigating.
Yeah, and right. But I mean, I get what you're saying about the mine site. That would probably be difficult, but surely that site in Waco, which I know it would be massive, surely they could start to have a look there if he's saying, because why would he say, he obviously wants the body to be found, whoever's responsible for it, if you know they're true, but it seems, why would you fabricate something so extreme, and unless you really need attention at that level.
Yeah, and there is talk about Ian's mental health and that what he says can't be trusted and all this stuff. So, and who knows too where the site was, if and especially the bushland, if it's all been developed now and shit like that. Housing estates have been popping up around there all the time. But you think maybe they might find something.
Yeah.
So we've got to come back to that, revisit that one, just in a little catch up one time where when we find out more information. But yeah, 20-year-old
family though. Oh my God.
For some reason too, and I could be wrong, this could be all lies, but for some reason I have in the back of my head that it was because of this. This is where they started to put in those breakdown phones along highways. Those phones. And for some reason, I remember when I was reading this, I thought it was because of this case.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, that's my story.
Wow. That's really interesting. I just really feel for that family. I just hope that they find what happened to her. I hate those ones where you just never know what happened.
In the end,
I just think it's just so rotten for a family to have to go through that trauma and then to just never know.
And the siblings especially thinking that it's their father's involved, their mother's life is destroyed through fucking prescription drugs and the depression of losing her daughter. So their whole world is just shook.
Yeah. Yeah, and to go through 30-odd years.
Yeah, thinking that your dad had done it. Yeah. So yeah, maybe the dad was a bit of a fucking see you next Tuesday, and that's why they've all got these repressed thoughts that, you know, he could have taken it that extra step. But as you said, I just don't see the motive
Yeah.
for that. So while he was heavily suspected by perception, he was never really formally investigated, and maybe there's a good reason for that.
And look, he's dead now though too. That's the other thing.
He's dead now. Yeah.
Once they're dead, I mean, it's good peace of mind, I guess, for the family to find out exactly what happened. But if the person who's responsible is already deceased, they never really paid for the crime, did they?
Yeah. Although,
unless they went to hell. Unless
and
heaven
also,
and hell exist and they went to hell.
I also think of these things too, like you know, he died of cancer in 2002. Maybe the cancer was his karma.
Yeah.
You know, when you hold on to shit, and that's stress can cause that too. Yeah.
I think it was those what are they? What was the surname?
Mulvihill.
Mulvihill. I think it was them.
So the son's surname is Ian Seeley, I think it is.
I reckon it was the dad.
Yeah, the father. I reckon they were both involved. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I reckon she's in Wake. I reckon she's at Waco. I reckon she's there somewhere.
If your dad calls you and says, "Can you pick me up? Oh, by the way, I've raped this chick. Can you help me move her?" And you're willing to do that.
Yeah, that says a lot about who you are as a person.
Exactly.
But then I guess some people are scared of their parents too. Some people have, you know, he could have been a very scary man, and he was the kind of man you didn't say no to, especially if he still lived in his home.
I know.
But still.
Go to dispose of the body for him and shit like that, yeah.
It seems the police are quite ready to dismiss a lot of the witness testimony as mental health, though. Like, I get it. The mother was on lithium for years and years, and the son, Ian, he had mental health problems and couldn't be relied on for. But it's almost like, well, they're dismissing a lot of what is potential leads, because I can't really believe it because they're, you know, not all there. It's like, fucking, it's all you got. Use it.
You might have to take it in mind.
Yeah, just see.
I know, but the poor bitch. And it's just
put two people on it. Just put one person on it, you know, just like.
Go have a squeeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it's just so sad too, like this lead up of events and getting to the army barracks and then not having a phone she can use.
Yeah.
Or telling her to fuck off or whatever. Finding a phone box. The guy coming out, getting a flat tire, not finding her, making a second call. It's all just horrible. Just shit circumstances. It kind of doesn't end well, that one, does it?
No, it's really sad. But it's good that there's an inquest, because there's been quite a few, at least two that I can think of that have come up lately where they've managed to solve it 30, 40 years later. To me, I find that's really bittersweet. Like, it's too little too late. Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess if it's your family and it's solved eventually, at least it's better than never being solved. But still, I just think when the people are dead, why couldn't you have solved it years ago?
Yeah, because there's been so much shit that the families would have gone through in that time of it not knowing, and you'd always still have in the back of your head that they're going to walk through the door one day.
Oh yeah, totally. Wait till you hear this one. This will make you tear up.
I look forward to it. So now we have your little topic on Stephanie Scott.
Okay, so Stephanie Scott. So look, I have done a bit of research on this one just to make sure my recollection of events was accurate, and it pretty much was. This one really was something that I think about. It's not like I think about it all the time, but it's definitely one that still haunts me a little bit. So Stephanie Scott was a school teacher that went missing Easter weekend in 2016. So I remember what happened at the time because I was really sick with tonsillitis, and it was Easter weekend. I wasn't doing much because I wasn't well. And remember how I used to get really bad tonsillitis and I'd be like sick as a dog, and I have to have injections of penicillin and everything. And so I was so crook, and I think I moseyed on over to my parents on Easter Sunday, which was the day that she officially went missing. And then
what year, sorry?
This was, I'm just double checking actually, just to make sure that 2016 was right. It's either 2015.
Right.
It was, sorry. So it was 2015. I was living in my little townhouse. I was crook all weekend, and I believe it was the Monday. So she went missing. This is how it went down. She was getting married the following weekend. It was obviously the Easter break over school. Easter Saturday, her husband-to-be was going to a party, and it was a couple of towns away. They lived in the very, very small town of Leeton, New South Wales, which has a population of 11,000. So super tiny, middle of nowhere. Yeah. So Easter Saturday, he says to her, look, I want to go to this party and see my mates. They're getting married the following weekend. Do you want to come? And she said, no, I'm just going to have a chill night. You go. They were living together. You go. I'm going to just stay in tonight. And he said, yeah, no worries. So he goes off to the party, has a reasonable night, stays at his parents who live nearby. They say goodnight. They text each other that night. And then the Sunday morning, she says she's going into school to finalise a couple of things. She was a dedicated school teacher in a small town. They adored her, the children. She didn't want her children to suffer because she was getting married and then she was going on her honeymoon, so she'd be away for several weeks. And she didn't want to leave too much work for the person who was relieving her as well. She wanted to have it all ready so, her being away didn't cause the absolute minimalist of disruptions to the school.
She was being a decent fucking human
absolutely.
Being colleague.
She was the girl next door. Everyone adored her. So I think it was either the Monday or the Tuesday that the press conference happened. And this is where it really resonated with me. So, sorry, I had to cough then. So this is where it really resonated with me. I remember him being on the news and everyone was, it would have been maybe the day after Easter Monday, so the Tuesday, I think it was, when the first press conference. So she went missing on the Sunday. He alerted her family by the Monday that she was gone and they'd called the authorities in. And it started getting hectic. Like Facebook was prominent at the time still. It was in, 2015. So people were starting to share things on Facebook. Her sister was living in Perth. Everyone was putting all this stuff on Facebook going, Stephanie's missing. This is not like Stephanie. She's getting married on the weekend. So it was the week of her wedding by this point. Something's wrong. And I remember him on the news saying, I believe her sister or her mum and dad from memory were in the background, and he was speaking to the reporters, and they were hammering him. They were calling her the runaway bride. They were saying she got cold feet. How do you know she hasn't just ducked off for a crazy weekend in Melbourne, a last minute, party before she gets married? Maybe she didn't want to marry you. Maybe she's having an affair. And they hammered him with all these sorts of questions, and he just took them all. Like, didn't get upset, just reiterated over and over with the support of her family in the background. This is not Stephanie. She would not have left. Something bad has happened, basically. And I remember watching him, and I'm a bit of a cynic. Usually when I see these sorts of things, I'm always like, oh, yeah, he's done it, or, it's the husband, or it's this, or it's that.
Usually it always is.
You're right, it is. So when I was watching him on the news, I remember thinking, oh, my God, this poor man, like, he seems absolutely heartbroken. You could see the distress, like the genuine distress about her. And the fact she was getting married on the weekend, it was just like, it just didn't sit right with me. I felt in my gut that something bad had happened, and I was obsessed then. So I can't remember if I'd had the week off work because I was sick or if it was just because it was Easter, but I was off the rest of the week, and I remember every minute of the day just scouring the news, trying to find any sort of piece of information of an update that she'd been found. So later that week, the family were holding hope out as well, because she lived in this small town. There was lots of ditches and bushland on the sides of a lot of the roads around Leeton, and about 10 years before, another girl had gone off the road. Her car had rolled a couple of times, and she was found about 8 days after she'd gone missing, fully alive, a bit injured and banged up, but because her car had rolled and she'd been trapped, and they were sort of holding out hope that something like that had happened to her. So
it's pretty dire when that's what you hope happens, isn't it?
I know, right? But it was a small town. What else could possibly have happened? Everyone knew everyone. Like, where could she be? And they knew she just wasn't the kind of person who would upset everyone or make people worry by taking off at the last minute or getting cold feet.
Yeah, she's a prominent figure as a teacher in a small town, so
exactly
everyone would have known her. Yeah.
So I'll go back to when the missing part as well, because we'll get to what happened. So I'll go back to, so when he noticed that she was missing, so he comes home on Sunday morning. They talked to each other Saturday night. He went to his party, went to his parents. By the time he got to his parents' house, he texted good night about midnight. She texted him back. Everything's fine. He texts her in the morning, says he's on his way home. It was a few hours drive. She says, yeah, great, I'm going into the school. So he says, okay, no worries. He'd booked a restaurant for a meal later that night. They hadn't made formal plans to go to dinner, though. They just talked about maybe going out. And he went, I'm just going to book this restaurant just in case. We'll probably go out for tea tonight. So he booked dinner plans for them. Driving home, she's not responding to any of his messages, any of his calls while he's driving this few hours home back to Leeton. He gets home, her car's not in the driveway. She's not there. She's not answered any of his messages.
Oh, she's not responding to him.
Yeah, that's so the last time they spoke was early hours of Sunday morning when she said she was going to the school to do some last-minute work for the relief teacher, and then she'd be home and she'd meet him at home. By the time he got home, she'd be home, basically. Yeah. And he gets home, she's not there. Meanwhile, she hasn't responded to any of his calls or anything on the whole way home. So he's like, well, where the fuck is she? Yep. He does a little bit of drive around nearby, tries to see if he can see her car, can't see her car. He's like, well, this is really weird. Keeps ringing her. Phone eventually is switched off because it obviously died. The phone's just not connecting at all. So he actually sleeps on it. He doesn't want to panic. He doesn't want to panic the family. So she's basically hasn't been missing 24 hours, but this is not like her. This is not something that she does. And it's not until the Monday. So this is Easter Sunday that she's gone missing. And it's not till the Monday that he calls her family and says, I don't know where she is. And they immediately are distressed because this is not like her. She would never just not come home one night. And they're all completely just beside themselves.
And you totally would start thinking about the fact that they're getting married the next week. You'd be thinking, has she?
Yeah.
Does she have cold feet?
Why would
she leave? Yeah.
You'd be hoping that was it, I think. You'd be praying that she just panicked. Yeah. I think. So then the week goes on. By Thursday, I think it was, again, getting married on the Saturday, so a couple of days before her wedding, they find her car. No other sign of her. No one's seen her. They've canvassed the whole town. They've spoken to every possible witness, anyone who was at the school on Sunday. Some people did see her at the school on Sunday, so they know that she'd been at the school. But that's about the extent. That was the last time someone saw her was at the school.
So other staff saw her at the school?
Correct, yes. So by about Thursday, they find her car. Her little red car. I can't remember what the make and model of it was. And it was in a field somewhere, just completely out, just parked nicely, no dramas. And they're just like, that's really random. Why on earth would a car be in this location? And then within 24 hours, so on the Friday, the eve of her would-be wedding, the police publicly announced that they'd found her body, her burnt body. It was in a national park, a nearby national park, not where the car was.
Near the car though?
No, it wasn't super close to the car. It was a different site, completely different site from the car. And they'd also found some of her belongings, and they hadn't really coughed up exactly where those belongings were, but they'd found her mobile phone, her keys, including her classroom keys, and I believe a red bra, of hers. They'd found a few things. And then as the day progressed on the Friday, they revealed who the person of suspicion was, and then they took him into custody, and it was the janitor, Vincent Stanford.
That's right. I remember the janitor, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got his surname wrong. What was his surname? Hold on. Vincent Stanford, that's it. Okay. So on the Friday, after they'd found her car, they found her remains, her burnt remains, and it was revealed that they had taken a man into custody. That man was Vincent Stanford. He was the cleaner at the school, and they believed that he was responsible for the murder of Stephanie Scott. So,
how old was Stephanie, do we know?
26.
How old was the cleaner?
So Vincent Stanford was 26, and as the case came about, it was determined that his twin brother also helped him cover up some of the murder, and it served about 18 months in prison for his role in what occurred. And
I've just seen a picture of him. Sorry, I've just seen a picture.
Oh, isn't he awful?
Oh, it's just when they've got that huge
Yeah, he
head
doesn't
from the
look well,
eyebrows
does he?
up. It looks like a swollen brain or something. Yeah.
So look, there's no happy ending to this one, and I still find it just absolutely gut-wrenching how awful it is. And when I was, reviewing my notes and researching things, I found it even more upsetting all this time after. And her fiance, it's 6 years later, he's moved on, he's engaged to someone else, and I think that's really great that he's able to move on with his life, and that the family could. I think her father passed away. They were older parents. But Vincent Stanford got a life sentence, and then he got a couple of other sentences on top of those, like, one for rape, one for
So why did he kill her? What did he do?
Okay, basically it was a crime of opportunity. It came out over time. He was a troubled youth. There's histories of him attacking teachers in primary school. He didn't have any friends, was a loner. They say that there was levels
of... Let's let him work in the school.
Well, and so there's a sealed. So the family won The family won a court case against New South Wales Education a couple of years ago, maybe last year, I think it was. And it's sealed information. It's confidential what the settlement terms were, but they won because they basically blamed New South Wales Education for not properly vetting the staff at the school, and that they were responsible in some way for her murder, which I fully agree with. I think.
Yeah, he shouldn't be around children.
Absolutely.
Especially.
And listen to this bit. So he was a photographer, and he always had his camera. So when they got to his house, so basically what happened was, she was leaving the school. She'd done all her work. She was leaving. She was walking out, and she said goodbye to him. She said, "I'll have a happy Easter," as she was walking out the front door. There was no one around. He grabbed her, attacked her, threw her into a storeroom, beat her. Excessively, and raped her.
Beautiful too, isn't she?
She's beautiful. And then he stabbed her in the neck to finish the job, and then left her in the storeroom, locked the storeroom because he was the janitor, locked the storeroom up, left, went home, made a cheese sandwich and had a cup of coffee. Then went back to the school, grabbed her, put her in the trunk of his car, took her back to his house, left her in the trunk of his car overnight, then went and disposed of the body by burning her.
What a fucking scumbag.
Rang his brother and said, "I'm sending you something in the mail." Sent the brother an envelope that had her ID, her driver's license, her car keys, a couple of other personal items, and his brother's like, "What the fuck?" And he went and destroyed those items.
And this is all during the time she's missing.
She was missing, so no one knew where she was. Yeah, so that happened. And then the police approached. So they had questioned him and his whereabouts during the time she went missing. He said he was in a grocery store. And then one of the police officers were like, "Oh, that store's not open on a Sunday." So they checked, the store wasn't open, so he lied. So that was enough for them to go to his house, and he wasn't home when they got to his house, and his mother was there. And they said, we want to have a look around, and she was like, yeah. So they came in, they found, I think it was on his phone, but maybe they confiscated his phone at a later date, but they found, that's right, they found her bra, I think, in his room, and the classroom keys they found in his bedroom. And then they took him into custody, and on his phone were photos of her body, that he had taken photos of her burnt body.
God.
And he said he downloaded them from a horror movie site, and that they were fake horror movie clips, but they weren't. They were Stephanie.
What a fucking scumbag. And he's taking pictures for his own personal collection.
I know, it's disgusting, isn't it? It's so bad. And then basically they had it all on him, but he was a photographer, and he was going around, he was stalking at least 4 or 5 women in the town. Not Stephanie, though, believe it or not, because it was just an opportunity.
She was there.
She was there at the right time. But a 12-year-old girl. So talking about what you were saying about New South Wales Education, one of the girls that they found on his phone that he'd been stalking was 12, and he was working in a school with children.
Yeah.
So it could have been a child, that
ended up in that situation.
Yes.
It's just so fucked, isn't it? It's just like the wrong time, the wrong place at the right time for both the cases we spoke about. If it was an hour later, if it was half an hour later.
Listen to this bit. So they found out the Friday night before her wedding, so the night she would have been preparing to sleep apart from her fiance to get married on the Saturday, they found out that she was dead and she'd been murdered brutally. So on the Saturday, the family, instead of having the wedding, they had a memorial service for her where everyone came dressed in yellow because that was her favourite colour. And there was, I remember that.
Then.
I know. I remember there was like a reporter there, or there was some imagery at the time, and I remember everyone there, and people huddling around the husband to be and the family, but them still trying to put a smile on their face, like trying to not let it break.
Because it was meant to be such an amazing and a beautiful and a love-filled occasion.
I know. How fucked is life sometimes, though? Like, how can you ever move on from that? I just think how people can pick up those pieces. It just shows remarkable character, because I think that would break me. Like her sister put something when she got on the plane. She was living in Perth, and she'd been missing for about 2 days at that point, and she posted on Facebook. Yeah, she posted on Facebook, come on, Steph. I'm turning my phone off now because I'm getting on the plane, and I'm hoping that when I land in Sydney, I'm going to land to happy news. And
she didn't.
No. And like, how do you go on? Yeah. But it's just a horrible, horrible story of true evil, I think. And that man, I think, I don't believe in the death penalty. Like, I just think there's too much at stake sometimes with, accuracy and things like that. But sometimes people don't deserve to live, hard. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
I don't think this man deserves to live. I believe that his crimes are far too great. And
it's hard, isn't it? Because I'm the same. I don't believe in the death penalty. And there's people that will confess to cases that aren't even them. And, just through their mental health or whatever. But yeah, it's challenging sometimes. There's so many times where you're just like, just put a fucking bullet in him.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve anything more. And I don't care that he was mentally incapacitated. I don't care that his IQ might not have been quite there, if he had mental health issues, or if he was slightly autistic, or whatever all the cases may be, that, try to explain why he was capable of what he did. Don't care. There's no excuse for what he did to that family or that poor girl. And
well, for one thing, he should never, ever be fucking released from prison.
Well, yes, and I think he's on no parole, but sometimes they let him out.
They do. Well, look at Jill Ma, that guy that was raping the women all the time.
Have they let him out?
No, but he was going in and out of prison before that.
Yes.
And then they're out on the street, and boom, they finally end up killing someone.
Yeah. This man should never, ever, ever be released.
Yeah, and you just hope that the lifestyle that he has in prison
is rotten.
Is absolutely rotten. Yeah, that he gets abused fucking every day.
Yeah, but I knew you'd like that one, because it shocked Australia. Like, and I remember watching it, and when they found the car, I was like, oh my god, this is not good. Yeah, something's happened, something bad's happened. And then when they found her body, I remember just thinking, oh, why does it have to be this way? Why?
I know.
Why couldn't they have found her? Why couldn't they have found her alive? Why couldn't she have been hiding out in a friend's house, freaking out, and then too scared to come forward because everyone was looking for her? Yeah, that would have been much more preferable to what actually happened.
I know. Yeah, no, it's fucked. It's sad. I do remember when it came out, though. I haven't really researched this one that much, but I do remember the janitor, and I do remember her being the school teacher, and the wedding and stuff like that. Like, they're the key things that stick out in my head with it.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers.
Super sad. But yeah, so that's the murder of Stephanie Scott. Thanks for listening to Stupid Bitches Say What. We hope you enjoyed our ramblings in this week's episode.
Don't forget, if you like what you hear, tell your mates and follow our socials and YouTube channel, Stupid Bees Say What.
Also, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at stupidbsaywhat@gmail.com for feedback, topic suggestions, or just general chit-chat.
Join us next week for our chats about pop culture. You stupid bitches.
You stupid bitches.
Bye.
Yeah, that stupid bitch. He's a stupid bitch. What a stupid bitch. That stupid bitch.